when we look at the time of Jesus Christ and his words, where he would even state, "Let the dead bury the dead," because it was a Roman civil system that dealt with the concept of a dead body corporate, which was going to basically pass on property. It basically gave us an understanding of a system that really isn't living. It's based on the dead. It requires someone to breathe life into it. So right off the top, anything that would be birthed out of a legal system would be a deadbeat. So we know that a deadbeat is someone who basically isn't going to pay any money, and so it doesn't really naturally have any energy without someone breathing into that. So it would require someone of the living who's breathing to actually be deceived into it, to actually envelop or embrace a concept that they are, or they believe they are, that dead body corporate. So these names, these surnames that have passed around, throughout the historical record, especially from the time of the Romans and throughout to our day, especially being mainly installed in North America during the 1200s on, that basically led the way through the system that we see today, that is in English law, that deals with the assignment of legal surnames. So when we look at this deadbeat, which really this doesn't live. The certificates that are issued, they're not living. They're made from, at least originally, as the money would have came from taking down a tree if you're going to deal with paper money. And of course, the tree was living before you cut it down, and then it becomes basically in paper form, dead form, and therefore it can't move on its own. It can only be believed to do something for a belief in value. The tree, when it was living, was invaluable, but once it's cut down, it's into another state that we may have used to use for firewood, or we may have used it to build a dwelling. But in the purpose of the idea of cutting the tree down to mill out a form of printing of money, that's taking it to the lowest based use, and therefore it becomes just a product of conception. So this is all this is. The birth registrations in the legal sense are just a product of conception. In fact, I was reading through one of the provinces of Canada, the Alberta, and again, they will even describe the birth as a product of conception. So it's just a product of belief, because it's not a natural conception. It is a legal conception of birth, and therefore it has no heartbeat. And therefore, it's really just a legal body corporate, a dead body, and money therefore is dead. Paper would come from a tree after it's dead, and therefore the surname just represents a legal debtor. Now, when we go to an interesting breakdown came out of this book. I always refer to it as "Be Your Own Liar." It's called "Be Your Own Lawyer." It came out of 1897. And it had a interesting definition for arrest of debtor. Now, we know that Christ arrested the debt. He canceled the debt. So it was over. There was no concept of debt after the execution of Jesus Christ, if we take it down spiritual, and we even take it down literal, to deal with, he canceled all conception of debt. So when we go to arrest of debtor under 512 of "Be Your Own Lawyer," it said, "The fiction is that no one in Canada can be arrested for debt, but it is only true because other names are used for the cause of arrest: fraud, absconding debtor, contempt of court, etc." So it says, "All the provinces allow an absconding debtor to be arrested and held for bail. Also imprisonment for fraudulent assignments, obtaining goods under false pretenses, and for contempt of court under judgment summons." Now, these are all the things that generally happen to anybody who's participating in the commerce, because these are the risk factors that come with you taking over a title that you are not really in authority over. So if you're touching something that belongs to someone else's jurisdiction, you're taking on surety of that responsibility and that debt. So the use of the certificates and someone carrying them around with them would obviously be evidence of them being the surety for that debt, because they show the security instrument and then they get themselves involved in a contract that immediately has the need for their signature and their picture, and possibly another derivative identification document showing them trafficking in the use of that name. Now they're really, of course, have no money. They're a deadbeat, so they're busted, right? So that's why they take a bust picture of everybody that's on or involved in the trafficking and commerce, which shows up on the driver's licenses. And because you're really the prodigal son that's going through the journey that says, I want to rule that estate, that legal estate, I'm going to do it. We go through the same journey that was described in the prodigal son parable that Jesus talked about, where eventually he woke up to his senses and realized that he really didn't know how to take charge of it. So whether you consider the legal state as the parens patriae or the father of this legal birth child, or we take it in a spiritual sense, that you're actually have woke up to spirituality and have detached yourself from trying to act in responsibility for the legal commerce, basically breaking down the very scripture of Matthew 6:24 that talks about you cannot serve God and mammon. So there's two sides going on. There's the legal side and then there's the spiritual. But they're two opposing masters. And so therefore it requires somebody to make a choice, an individual make a choice between both sides. But when we really look at it and we take into account the certificates that are issued, they have a seal and a signature that holds responsibility as the one that really is for that debt. They are the sponsors of the debt of the legal birth child, and therefore they're responsible and have the onus upon them to basically handle and settle that debt. Now, if you decide you want to walk in and pay someone else's debt, that's a matter of elective choice. And this is what people have done. They were duped and deceived into it, and now they become so comfortable with the concept of commerce, they believe that they actually are necessary to be, or they need to be in necessity involved in that commerce. And so they become the commerce, they become the very tool, instead of actually using this as a tool. So you can work for the paper, or you can let the paper work for you.